7, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And there isn't one of us that doesn't want to be someplace else. This is what we do. Who we are.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
Boom, and welcome to Rambo and Friends. I am super excited about today. How's everybody doing? Welcome. Let me talk for a few minutes here, try to let people pile in as I see there's a whole punch. Oh, it's really good to see you, Mark Vegas. I see you, Lord of the Pepe, PFC Peanut. I did not get a chance yet to add a moderator, so I'm gonna have to keep a really close eye on Rumble. I was given that advice, and I got all these kids at the house. It's summertime, so I was not able to get down here until just a minute ago, and I forgot until I just saw you, to be honest. So I'll keep an eye on Rumble. I know we had problems at the last show. I will do my best to make sure we keep the problems under control this time. Bear with us, guys, if they do get through, because I am also going to be giving our guests for today my utmost attention. So I really don't even know how to introduce this. First and foremost, this happened literally on a God type thing, because I had a guest scheduled for today, a guest that I love and can't wait till he's able to be on. But DC Lidstone was supposed to be here today and go through some decodes and stuff with us, like he always like he did the previous time, and he had some family stuff come up. So we're going to reschedule that one, and it just so happened that these guys have something amazing they want to share with everybody. I think they have a goal and a purpose beyond the ones that you already know about. So I am super excited to hear about it. I am absolutely honored that both of these guys, especially one of them, being that it's his first time on the show, is going to be here. So with that being said, let's hear from the boss himself, and we'll get right into it.
I wouldn't miss a chance to talk to my friends. These are my friends.
Dude, I feel like Donald Trump said that just so that I could use it on this show.
That's a great line.
Yeah. First, let me do this. Let's say hi to the person that's been here a whole bunch of times. Super close friend of mine personally, super good friend of the show. Beer at the Parade. How you doing, buddy?
Good, Joe. Thank you so much for sneaking us in. What we're going to talk about today and what Mike and I want to announce is God's fingerprints all over it. And he's pushing us in the back saying, go, fast, go. So we're going to go.
All right. Well, let me say hi to, I got to be honest, bro. I'm a little bit almost starstruck. Like, that's how much I look up to you and your family.
Oh, enough about me. Talk to Mike for a little bit.
Yeah, Joe, I appreciate the invite, and looking forward to talking with your audience. I mean, these podcasts have more power than you know, and it's one of those things that we can really touch the lives of a lot of people who are out there, and that's really certainly what Scott and I have been talking about as of late, and why you're going to see he and I on many podcasts coming up in the next really couple of weeks, next month. Just because we have this initiative that we're really wanting to get underway, because we both experienced very similar things, and Scott will go into the Zoom calls that he has every Friday night that I've become a part of, that I am absolutely never going to miss again, because they're that powerful. So very excited to be here. Love the intro. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Rambo in general. Obviously, I'm so full disclosure. I'm 41 years old. I'm an '83 baby. We need to bring back movies from the '90s. The Arnold Schwarzeneggers, the Sylvester Stallones, the friggin' Jean-Claude Van Damme, Bloodsport. I mean, the list is endless. I mean, but that intro was pretty awesome, dude.
That's really cool. Yeah. So the Rambo thing was honestly a nickname that was given to me because I used a lot of like memes in a chat of another show, and I just kind of owned it. Alphabets, hat tip to them. He made me this flag, one of them. Anyway, but it made perfect sense because it was like, what happens when the guys that just wanted to be left alone get involved, right? So I was like, I owned that shit because it's how I felt. It's how I felt. I mean, I sat back and watched a lot of the Anons and Patriots for a good 3-4 years before I decided to put my name out there. So yeah, it made a lot of sense. Hey, can I tell you a quick story before I ask you some
100%.
questions?
100%.
And I think that you're gonna be aware of some of it. Because I want to ask you about the tour. So I bought tickets to go to the closest venue to me, right? And it just happened to be the one in Delaware.
Okay.
So I just prior to that, I would guess that you're probably pretty close with Boone, right?
Yeah, I've become very close with Boone. Yeah.
Well, I found through some friends some posts that Boone signed as Q in 2013. Right.
I am aware of those posts. I've seen them.
So I was just kind of like nudging the bear a little bit, and I kind of quote tweeted one of them, and then I realized, oh shit, I forgot I have like 100,000+ people that watch. So I was like, oh no, I shouldn't have done that, and I deleted it, and then the event was canceled, and I was so paranoid that I thought that they actually just told me I couldn't come.
No.
So I desperately want to hear, like, that's how I know it's not all about me, but I was so scared because you guys mean so much to me. So I tell that story. I want to hear about the events because I wasn't able to be there.
Well, so we were originally supposed to do 36 cities in 50 days, and 2 of the cities canceled, which I think one of them was up in Michigan, and another one was Bucyrus, Ohio, if I'm saying that right. Those 2 canceled because they were supposed to be in churches, and we had what we call we had the church version, and then we had what we call the Uncle Jack version. So if you've seen the movie, you know that my Uncle Jack uses a few explicitives in the film, which I think make the film fantastic. But they, even our church version wasn't church enough for these 2 venues, meaning that they didn't even want to see like the wording, coming from the mouths of the people that were in the movie. So, such is life. We canceled those, but the Delaware one in particular was just more of an interest. More of an interest level. I mean, we just didn't, just the ticket sales weren't enough. But it wasn't anything that anybody posted. It wasn't anything that in particular. I promise, my friend, it has nothing to do with that. It was just, unfortunately, Delaware just didn't decide to show up, and it's really as simple as that. But the other venues that we actually stopped at, and we can certainly get into. Just the some of these incredible places that we stopped at all around the country. I mean, we ended up doing a total of 33 cities in about 50 days.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the other part I wanted to say, quick beer, I don't want to knock you out of this conversation. I want to say one more thing. Your aunt Mary, right? Is Mary your aunt?
I have a few aunts, but yeah, my Aunt Mary O'Neill. She's the the executive director of the 501c3. That General Flynn is the chairman of America's Future.
Well, I don't know if I've already extended a hand of gratitude to Mary, but I want to tell this one more time because I'm so grateful. So there was a battle. There's a current battle that I'm still going through to secure custody of my son. So we're going to get into trauma later in the show, and I don't know how much you know my story, but there's a lot of trauma in mine, right? Mm-hmm. And it took a decade to get my son back. Lawyers became very, very, very expensive. And there was a thread that I humbly had to write and put out there with some advice of some people I look up to in the movement. And long story short, your Aunt Mary stepped up and helped me, and I will never forget it. I will
Wow.
never forget what she did for me. So I just wanted to extend that level of gratitude to you as being part of the family, and maybe you could just let her know that I said that, because it meant the
Yeah.
world to me.
Yeah, 100%. And my, and you know, no matter what part of my family, whether it's my Aunt Mary or my Aunt Barbara or my Aunt Claire, I mean, all the Flynns, again, it's like, I wish I said this in a couple of different interviews, but I wish that that General Flynn's mom and his father were still around, because they would absolutely, I mean, you'd really get a chance to know exactly why General Flynn and the rest of his siblings are the way that they are. Just, I mean, incredible people. My father always calls them, they were lifelong learners. I mean, my grandmother, I think she got a real estate license when she was like 60. I'm sorry, she had a law degree when she was 60, and then she got a real estate license when she was like 65. So, which is just incredible to me, I mean, and this is because she had 9 kids. She sacrificed any type of career to to raise 9 children in a 1,200 square foot house. Which, I mean, again, if you saw this place, which I grew up in, to the degree that we went up to Rhode Island and visited them a lot. You can't imagine 3 or 4 people living in this house, let alone 11, because right, it's the parents and the kids. So yeah, my grandmother Helen Flynn, my grandfather Charlie Flynn, who's a Korean War vet, World War II veteran, just an incredible guy. I ended up dying of I think it was like his 5th heart attack or something like that. It's like just an incredible guy. But yeah, I'll definitely tell Mary, that you passed along your appreciation for sure.
She was one of the ones, because when the event was canceled, I messaged like 10 people. You were one of them, I think, right? I messaged you, I messaged Mary, I messaged Boone, I messaged everybody, and I'm like,
hey Mike, if we knew Joe was coming in on a specific Friday evening, do you think that Mary would like to hop in and he could thank her in person?
I think Mary would definitely hop in on a Zoom call for sure.
yeah.
I also noticed when you were off top, when you were scratching your eye, was that shiny on your arm? Did you get some new ink or something?
I definitely got some new ink.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Boom.
Yeah. I just got that. It was like maybe 3 or 4 days ago.
That's awesome.
I love it. I mean, it's like I know We the People is not. It's not like the most unique thing to get tattooed, but I mean, it's just one of those phrases that I just felt compelled to get tattooed. I got a bunch of other tattoos as well that I'm very proud of. And
did you see? I have a We the People too.
I know. Yeah. I like that.
I've got to admit, I'm a little bit jealous about your tattoo, because I recently went in to get some ideas, and the guy looked at the size of my arms. He goes, "Bro, I could give you dental floss, but not waxed dental floss."
Thing is, Scott, once you get one, you're gonna want like 20. So that's the thing about tattoos.
It's just not my thing, bro. But
Here, I wanna do this first part, if you don't mind, where you kind of do this with me. You've quickly become one of my best friends in the movement. Like, that's just a fact. I would like to ask Mike about I just watched the movie again this morning, just so I was more up to date, so that we could have this conversation. So I'd like to ask him things like what it was like while his father was away. Like my father certainly wasn't to the level of General Flynn, but he was absent for a lot of time, like things like that. So sure. I'm gonna direct that question specifically I just asked to him, but I want you to be able to join in with me. And for this first part, let's ask Mike about life, right? Because to me, the Flynns are, like I said, kind of up on a pedestal as far as I'm concerned. So I want to invite you into the question asking, and Mike, if you could dabble into that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, it was interesting growing up, moving from military base to military base for sure. I mean, it's like, when you ask a military kid or a military brat, where are you from? The first response that typically comes next is, how much time do you have? Right. Because I mean, I was born in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which I guess they're now calling it Fort Liberty, which I'll never call it that, by the way. So always going to be Fort Bragg to me. yeah, born there in '83, and then just moved around every 2 or 3 years. And I will say that as a younger kid, when my father was, I guess, junior in rank, he he was around. He was involved in my. So I have a younger brother, Matt, who actually lives overseas right now. And he was involved in our lives, for the most part. But what I really remember growing up were the different, what they call change of commands, right, in the military. So I remember like a lot of the ceremonial aspects of kind of being young and going to these different events. You'd have family travel in, and remember him getting promoted from from captain to major to lieutenant colonel, and so on and so forth. I would say probably in the mid 90s, maybe 96, 97, when he started to, this was maybe when we were living in Fort Polk, Louisiana, is when I started to see him less, because he started to become more senior in rank. And so, he was out in the field a lot. He didn't really deploy until after I had left the house. So I graduated high school in 2001. And I went to school in Charlotte, North Carolina for a number of years, and so I was kind of at school, living my life and doing my thing, and he was, I think he deployed right after 9/11. But I guess kind of fast forwarding to when I really started learning about my father was when he and I started working together in end of 2014. So he was, as everybody knows, he was kind of forced out of the DIA, and that's talked about a little bit in the movie in 2014. And he knew I was kind of dissatisfied in the job that I was working at the time. I was working for a company that my Uncle Joe ran, and was actually working in Bethesda, Maryland, at a hospital, and my office was like in the second sub-level basement, like 2 doors down from the morgue. So every time I went to work, I'd have to walk by a morgue every single day. So you can imagine how how happy of a work environment that was. But anyways, obviously, when he said, yeah, like let's start a business, and he knew that he was going to be very busy. He knew that he was going to be still vocal in what he was wanting to be vocal about at the time, which was obviously the Obama administration's lies. And so, I started meeting people that had worked for him, just had various bases that we were stationed at. And so it was just incredible to hear stories about oh, I was your father's, command sergeant major at Bragg, or I was this and this. And so to hear some of these stories about things that he did to affect, numerous amounts of people over the course of the different places that we lived was incredible. And so I had the opportunity to learn through other people about my father, because my father has never been, he's never been like a feelings guy. He's never been like a guy that opens up about things. It's just kind of, very, very military, minded. And so it was cool to be able to, to hear those stories and then ask him hey, I just heard this, and oh yeah, that happened in, 87 or 88, and when you were 5. I'm oh, okay, that's pretty cool. But yeah, growing up, look, if you ask any military brat, what growing up is like, in the military, it's just, you meet people, you have friends, and then you say goodbye. You go to schools, and and you have some people remember their first grade teachers because they lived in the same area their entire lives. But I just became accustomed to to moving a lot and meeting a lot of different kinds of people, and being able to interact with a lot of different cultures, which I actually believe has helped me in what I'm doing today, and what I'm trying to do moving forward. I love talking to people. I have no problem opening up about anything, because I think being an open book, being authentic, and being genuine are qualities in an individual that we all really need to possess, because that's how we move forward as as a country. That's how we move forward as human beings. and it's unfortunate that we have people who dive into chat sometimes that don't understand that, So I'll stop there. I mean, I'm happy. Like I said, we talked about this before. I will answer any question about anything to the degree that I can, and go from there.
I'd like to share a story about me observing General Flynn when he didn't know I was observing him. And we were at a dinner, and I was seated kind of diagonal across from the general, and I wasn't saying a whole lot. But he spent a majority of his time sitting next to this little boy who was probably 9 or 10 years old, and he had caught wind that little boy was soon moving from Myrtle Beach to I think it's Hot Springs, Arkansas, in the middle of nowhere. And he not only was sharing his food with this kid, but he started asking him questions, trying to put the boy at ease. And he said, "You don't by chance have a pond on this new property or new home you're going to, do you?" And clearly the dad had kind of clued him in on a few things. He goes, "Yeah, we got a pond." And the general looked at the kid's father. He goes, "That pond isn't stocked, is it?" He goes, "Oh, it's fully stocked." And the general looked at that little boy and he goes, "Do you have any idea how popular you're going to be at your new school when all the other boys find out you have a fishing pond? You're going to have more friends and you're going to know what to do with." And I sat there and my thought was, there are two kinds of charisma, or I guess there's position power and personal power. And in position power, the general had 3 stars on his collar. So he could just tell you, go do it. And by rank, you just jump and go do it. But he has personal power. And I'm sure that people so loved and admired and respected him that worked for him, he would just ask you to do something and you would just run through a brick wall to do it. And the general is extremely outwardly focused and kind and generous with his time. And the one thing I did get to say to him was my regret. He and I both served in Army intelligence, and I missed him. I would have given anything to have served under that man's command. Anything.
Yeah.
Well, I would. Yeah. I'll just add to that. I mean, the number one thing, Joe and Scott, we've spoken about this before. Just when it comes to my father as a human being, right? It's everybody that especially at these Reawaken America tour events. I've always had people come up to me and say, hey, your father is nothing like how he's depicted, in the media. He's actually like a really great, like down to earth, genuine, kind of a goofy guy. Like he's just a regular guy, like you wouldn't know that he's, a 3-star general. You wouldn't know that he has the profile that he does, when you actually, get a chance to sit and talk with him. And what's interesting about that is that's exactly how, like when I met Donald Trump for the first time in 2015, I will tell you that's exactly how I felt meeting Donald Trump, because that's the way that he felt. That's the way that he came across. You know what I mean? That's how he made me feel, so to speak. And so I believe that is why, he and my father really connected on a different kind of level when they first met in 2015, and why I think that their relationship was envied by certain folks that were around President Trump in 2015 and 2016, and I know my friend Ivan Raiklen has talked about that in the past. That's actually mentioned in the movie a little bit. But yeah, I wanted to put that out there because, for those that, for those naysayers out there, which it's just, some of these people they're just funny, because I don't know if they've even ever met General Flynn, or if they've ever been to an event, and had a chance to actually like interact with them one-on-one. I mean, maybe they have, I don't know, but I would be willing to bet that if they just had like 5 minutes to chat with them, that their opinions would vastly change. You know what I mean? I mean, he's not going to bullshit you. He's not going to, he's not going to, run down any crazy rabbit holes with you. But he's going to be as blunt and as straightforward, as you'll get. And that's what you'll always get with him. And so I read some of the stuff, this craziness online, And I just, I've gotten to the point, Joe, where I've had to laugh. I have to laugh at it, because I used to allow like the anger like to consume me when it came to reading some of this bullshit out there. You know what I mean? Because that's an emotion, and we'll certainly get into this when we talk about some of the other topics I know we wanted to address. But I mean, that emotion, anger is I mean, it's just one of those things. It can be very difficult to control, and it can consume you. And I think when I read some of these online troll comments, I think some of these people are they're just like they embrace being angry all the time. They embrace just not being happy people. I'm not saying I don't get angry, but it's like Jesus Christ, man, like turn your phone off, go outside, like get some exercise, let some sunlight hit your damn face for 5 minutes, and like realize that what you're saying, you have no backing, you haven't met the guy personally, and and he's he just cares about saving this country, because if we don't get this right in November, folks, we're headed for some dark times. And I'll stop there, because man, that's another whole series of discussion.
Let me add multiple perspectives to that I think all say the same thing, right? My Twitter account is at like whatever 147 or something like that. That is a microcosm and one application where like some people know who I am, and I already get called an operator. I already get like attacked ad nauseum. I get called hopium. I get called all types of things. Take it all the way to the top. Donald Trump gets called the Antichrist. He gets called. I mean, the amounts of levels of bullshit that's thrown at Donald Trump is absurd.
Yeah.
Well, General Flynn isn't far removed, in my opinion, from Donald Trump. It only makes sense that there's some hate and some attacks. Unfortunately, I think the movie was going to expose, and did expose, a whole lot of truth. So there was a really hard push prior to the movie, and some of it is stuck because, people are emotional. When you hear something that your emotions gravitate to, your belief system goes in that way as well, and then you defend it emotionally. And that's why on this show we talk all the time about rational thought rather than protect your mind, control your emotions. Right? I say it all the time. I know I've seen Boone say it a lot. I believe that it's a huge thing when it comes to 5th generation warfare. Protect your mind, control your emotions. Take a step back and take all of the information in without the emotional attachment, because the attacks on your father are you can't get into a conversation with the name Flynn and see both sides of the argument without acknowledging that it is emotional, period.
Yeah.
So
no, it is. It very much is. And again, some of the stuff that I've read out there, stems from 2015 when I guess we don't have to get into some of the specifics, but everything that we have ever done, as a business entity, for example, between my father and I it's all open source. There's nothing that we're one of the most vetted friggin' families in this country. All right. And it's like, for anybody to think that we're operating in a way to, like, for example, subvert Donald Trump's upcoming presidency, as if like General Flynn is in some way doing something behind the scenes with Roger Stone, and we're like, and we're trying to figure out a way to install General Flynn as the next president of the United States. I'm like, I read some of this stuff, and I'm like, I just had a conversation with my father the other day about all these different initiatives that we're doing with Patriot.tv and this 501c and that 501c3 and this speaking event that we have coming up and this endorsement that we're going to make and like 5 other things that we're doing, and I'm like, okay, like where would my father have the time to quietly coordinate with Roger Stone to subvert Donald Trump for the presidency? It's like, no, like just it's not possible because of again, what I know my father to be doing, and again, he's very public. I mean, he's on a friggin' podcast like every damn day. So it's like, I just, what goes through the minds of some of these folks out there, it's laughable. I mean, and again, I personally have to laugh at it, because if I don't, then I will revert back to how I used to be in 2017, when I had a much bigger, X, or what used to be Twitter, following. And I would get sucked into like going back and forth with a lot of these troll accounts, these bot accounts, and just, look, I'm going to defend my father till I'm blue in the face. I mean, that's my father. You know what I mean? And I will, and I'll continue to do that. But the problem is, when you have these these bot armies or these troll armies out there, that when you respond to one person and you have 10 or 11 other responses that come in with it, and it's like, okay, I mean, what am I doing with my time here? But I used to get consumed in that, and it would drive me mad, and it made me a very angry person. So I'm not like that anymore. I will still respond to certain people, because you just kind of have to, you have to sometimes.
Yeah, I spent the day doing it yesterday, and I rarely do it. So I know what you're saying. But you know what I think the armies, the bot and troll armies you're talking about feed off of? You know what's really cool? You said earlier in the conversation that did you say you were born at Fort Bragg?
Yeah.
And you talked about Fort Lauderdale. That's the home of Fort Pog, right? For the PSYOP group. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. I love them.
Okay.
I think their videos are awesome. Right. So, but
I like them. I'm a big fan of their videos for sure.
Yes. So there's a lot of what goes into this movement that is a whole lot of dot connecting and speculation, and people do the same thing when it comes to personalities and faces in the movement. And I think that with a lot of those bot armies and troll armies that have attacked your dad, that a lot of people will, I'm not going to name the specific large accounts that are the main perpetrators, but I think that's why people end up like gravitating towards them emotionally. And my question is always to all of them when we get in a conversation, look, I'm not here to fight you over it. I believe in unity. I don't believe in division. I believe this is dividing. So what is it that we gain by screaming traitor or screaming whatever hateful? What do we gain? What is the end game? What do we gain by fighting? Because the only thing I see is division. Right? So, because if we all believe that Donald Trump is El Capitan, if we're all heading in the same direction anyway, then what you're doing is only dividing the movement. And I don't believe in that. So
yeah, the pieces of shit that are trying to lord over us are trying to keep us in a lower vibrational mode. And so they're going to use fear and try to keep us angry, which will lower your vibration. Their greatest fear is us uniting and ascending together as one solid arm in arm group of people. And there's nothing that's going to stop this army of frogs. I don't fear them in the least.
I jumped to the conclusion that some of the folks that I know that you dealt with, just recently. I mean, for me, I can't think of anything other than they're working for the other side. Like these, you hear the term plant, or you hear the term, mole, right? It's like, if you're going to, I mean, knowing how public the relationship is, for example, that the Flynns have with the Trumps, that General Flynn has with Eric Trump, that General Flynn has with Donald Trump Jr., that General Flynn has with Donald Trump. How in God's name could you think for 1 second that my family and General Flynn in particular is trying to do anything other than support this man going into November? So when you come at my family, when you come at General Flynn in a way that you don't provide any facts, it's all speculation. Like, oh, well, he said this, so it must have meant that. Like, no, screw that. Like, you're not in a position to make any kind of informed argument. Therefore, you must be working for the other side. I don't know of any other explanation. And what side is that? Is that the side of the of the Uniparty? Is it, I mean, are these CIA plants? These FBI? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answer to that. But you're definitely not America first. You're definitely not pro this country. And you could say that to your blue in the face all day, but if you're going to sit there and call my father a traitor, you're dead wrong. You have no evidence. There's no fact base. There's just nothing fact based about that.
I just know in 8 or 9 short months, we'll never have to have that argument ever again.
Thank you. That's a great point.
No, seriously, time is going by so quickly, especially at my age. At my age,
there's no
older
way
you get, the faster it goes. But I can do 8 months standing on my head because I know what's coming.
But there's no way we aren't looking at the final phases of whatever this is. I like to call it an operation, but whatever. So can I show a post I made earlier today?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you saw this, Mike, but
I did see that.
This is specifically just from the movie. This doesn't. I considered doing all of the Great Awaken or Awaken America tour, whatever the hell it's called, because that would have added all the Trump boys. That would have added everybody that you see on stage. This is just the credits from the movie, and this so it only scratches the surface. But Tucker Carlson, Michael Rogers, Ivan Raiklin, these are all the people you would have to stand against to believe that General Flynn was what the people that are saying negative things believe, right? Mm-hmm. Devin Nunes, yourself, Lori Flynn, Joe Flynn, Adam Lovinger. I mean, am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, Lovinger. Yep, that's right.
Jesse Banal, Tracy Beans, right? Lee Smith, mm-hmm. Barbara Redgate. She's also a Flynn, correct?
Yep.
Yes. Mary Flynn, who I absolutely adore and love, in case you didn't hear it the first time. Alicia Kutzer, Boone Cutler, and of course Donald Trump himself. And this is the point that is huge for me. So if you're standing with the fact that General Flynn is potentially a traitor to this country, then you're standing with Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Think that through for a second. And what is it you're gaining by standing with Barack Obama, except for to divide this movement?
I mean, you may as well be standing with Barack Obama, as I think is what your point is here. I mean, it's
right.
I mean, again, it's that Barack Obama in November of 2016. And again, part of the movie just discusses how Barack Obama warned Trump about two people. The North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un and General Flynn. I mean, it's like talk about like picking two random names out of a hat, but it's like. Again, why General Flynn? There was a reason. I mean, there's a reason for everything, and I think that you hit the nail on the head with that. It's like
I've got a theory that those two names were not picked randomly out of a hat, and I'll tell you why.
Well, I just meant like I mean in the collective, right? Like to pick two people, like he could have went off on I don't know 3 or 4. Other folks, right? Or he could have, gave Trump like a list and say, hey, avoid these like 10 people. But it's like maybe he did that. I don't know. But what was made public was the two I mentioned. So
here's my theory why he specifically went out of his way to single out those two people. Number one is Donald Trump interrupted the 16-year plan, and they didn't see that coming. And as part of that plan, in my humble opinion, Hillary was going to get us into World War III, and they were going to use the newly upgraded ICBM capabilities coming out of North Korea. But if you go back and look at uranium one scandal, that uranium was being moved around the world and ultimately was going to wind up in North Korea. They were going to launch missiles in the United States. She was going to blame it on Russia and get us into World War III. That's just my, me, I'm just a conspiracy hat sort of guy. So they wanted and needed a conflict between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. The problem was they probably already knew each other, and we were signaled years before Trump was elected when he sends his buddy Dennis Rodman over to get a photo taken with Kim Jong-un holding a Trump book. And that photo went everywhere. If that's not a signal, I don't know what is. And the reason they went after General Flynn, or he was just telling the world that guy knows where all the bodies are buried. And at first I was thinking about all the pedo networks and that, and I'm still open to that. But I think he knows where all the internal bodies are about to be buried inside these 3-letter agencies. And man, selfishly, I hope General Flynn winds up with an appointment when he can literally grab a shovel and start cleaning house. Those people are going to be shitting their pants. I'll take DOD. I'll take head of the DNI for 500, Alex. But you know what? What if, going out on a limb, what if he became VP and redefined the role as somebody who's active and doing the right things, as opposed to our wall czar who's doing absolutely nothing? So that's just my 2 cents on why those two people were singled out. I could be full of beans.
Yeah, because let me just say there are other capable people to be the head of the DNI. But so here's my thing on why General Flynn and Kim Jong-un were both named. They were absolute threats to the establishment, because we just saw Putin go over there and drive around in a car with them, receive dogs from them. It's certainly starting to look like this drop, and many, many more like it, make a whole lot of sense. What if China, Russia, and others are coordinating with POTUS to eliminate the world order? Right? North Korea is literally right here in the directions or the questions that were given to us that led us in a direction, right? So it seems to me that it's odd to say that those two would be in good company with each other as people that were threats to the establishment. But it's true in my opinion. It's what I believe is true through my research. So I think it's a huge point actually that people don't consider. Let's see. I want to see what direction to take this one. How long will we be going? 41 minutes. Do you guys want to start to get into what it is that you have in store before I go and ask the really crazy question?
Yeah, just let me let the cat out first, because it's a priority.
Yeah, I'll
go ahead.
Yeah, I'll let Scott really get into really get into the kind of the nuts and bolts of what we're trying to do, but ultimately it's at least for me, and I'll just give you my my experience. So I had a really good friend of mine. She introduced me to Scott's Friday night Zoom calls, and I didn't really know what to make of them. I just she was like, yeah, just kind of pop in and check them out. And I did one. I did one day, and it was just a lot of random people I had never met before, and seemed like really good people. And then I hopped in another one, and one of the gentlemen really started sharing his story about something that happened. Just a really tragic story about what happened to his to his wife, and the story was incredible. And so I got to experience more of those stories as I've been on these Zoom calls, and I will tell you that the power of community, especially when you're around and when you're talking to like-minded people, that the power of being able to open up and share is a feeling that is like none other, really. And so Scott and I have been kind of going back and forth about and Scott really is the genesis behind this. But we started talking about, like, how can we expand this? How can we, or what can we do to give this feeling, to give this to give the ability for more people around the country who we know are dealing with their own trauma, their own anxiety, their own stresses in life. How can we bring this to other people in on kind of a massive scale? And so we're thinking big with this, and we're kind of toying around with some names, and I think we came up with a pretty good one. And Scott's already kind of sent it around to kind of internally to some folks that that he knows and that I know, but ultimately it's they're going to be these small kind of online healing groups that you're going to know the kind of who is behind these groups. I mean, for me, I want to know that if I'm going to be honest about things, if I'm going to be vulnerable about anything, I want it to be around like-minded people. And so, but that being said, we're not going to close this off to anybody who's hurting out there. And so we want to bring people together in small groups, because you get too big a group. Sometimes, people that really want to share don't have the ability to share. And the idea is like, okay, so how is this going to be different than, because you can search online for, online therapy, online counseling, online support. And there's a ton of options out there. You know what I mean? But for us, it's, it's certainly going to be very kind of niche oriented. And I'll stop here and let Scott kind of, dive into more about like the intricacies of what this is really about.
Well, should I just jump in, Joe?
Yeah. Go for it, brother.
So I got this idea after interviewing a gentleman named Theo Fleury. And I would strongly recommend all of you get on YouTube and just type in Theo Fleury, Fleury, TED Talk.
We did an episode. If you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, here on Rambo and Frens, you can go back in history and you'll see an episode that I did with Scott and Theo. Go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
And it was a great one. And so he first gave me the offer to co-author a book with him. Yeah, there's a name and graphic that Mike and I were playing around with today. The name of this really isn't going to be that important because word of mouth is going to go everywhere when these things are running and people are telling their stories and sharing, their improvements on their social media. So I'm not going to lose any sleep over a perfect name or graphic or anything. It'll come, but we just need to launch these things sooner rather than later. God's hand is in this 1,000%. And so when I was talking with Theo about maybe co-authoring his next book with him, I had the thought, and I'm like, we're about a year out because I know it takes 6 months to research and write, and then you've got to have it edited and then prepped for print. And so by the time anybody would be reading this next book, and by the way, I strongly recommend reading his first book, Playing with Fire. Anyways, I got this idea and I said, well, what if we were to start these groups like now and start filling them today? Because everybody I've talked about this is hurting. And it wasn't just COVID, but COVID is the most recent thing that caused mental trauma for just about everybody involved. People were separated from their loved ones, ostracized. Opinions were, I guess, polarizing, especially about the vax. That I'll talk a little bit later about my trauma and my 1.5 year depression because of how my loved ones were reacting to being vaccinated and proud of it, and me being on the other end of that spectrum. So unfortunately, due to Theo's fame in Canada and him being vociferous online about how much he hates their government and how rotten and corrupt they are, the guy's got a bullseye on his back the size of Rhode Island. And after giving it some thought, he came to the conclusion that, if he were to get involved with this, that would be an excuse for them to come after him for something. And he doesn't need more bullseyes on his back right now. So he's had to gracefully decline kind of being the face of this. And it took no more than a couple weeks later, because I'm God's favorite and he gives me noogies. He sent me somebody named Mike Flynn Jr., who had a strong interest in being part of this and helping bring healing to as many people as possible. So that's where we are today. And as soon as I caught wind that Mike was even thinking about doing something like this, I put a call into him. I said, let's talk. And he's a tough guy to do business with. I got to tell you, it took us all of like 2 minutes to iron out ownership and who was going to do what and what was going to look like. And after 2 minutes of arm wrestling and us, him throwing punches at me and me ducking, I finally figured out, I could work with this guy. He's okay. So we're off and running. We've already contacted and found accredited group therapists who specialize in trauma. And I just want to kill the elephant in the room, which it's not just trauma, because when people hear that word, they think motorcycle accident, you lose an arm, or you get the call out of the blue that you've lost someone close to you. Yes, that's trauma, but also trauma can be death by 1,000 cuts, and it comes up in the form of anxiety and stress. And we're all living through that right now with the economy, the uncertainty of the next presidency, the open borders. Crime is increasing because of the lack of support of police, which is crazy. Crooked DAs, crooked judges, crooked prosecutors, letting these criminals walk, depleted police forces. There's a lot of anxiety to be had. So Mike and I thought it would be important to hop on shows like yours, Joe, and I was tickled pink that my buddy David had to have a last minute cancellation because I wanted this to happen. I had us booked on another one for Wednesday night. Woke up this morning, said a prayer, put out a little feeler, and here we are. So clearly we're moving at God's speed, and it's fast. So if any of you are suffering from anxiety or depression or just don't have people to talk to and you'd like to join a small group of 12, we settled on that number. It worked pretty well for some guy named Jesus a couple thousand years ago. So it's going to be 12 per group. We are going to allow people as they join a group, if they're uncomfortable doxing themselves or sharing their story, they can stay on the group anonymously as long as they want. Don't have to show video, make up a fake first name. But we want people to get their stories off their chest. Get rid of the millstones that you've been dragging around your whole lives. And know that you will be with people who are suffering similar things that you are. And if it's anything like my Friday night group, organically, people will start doxing themselves. They're going to like someone else's personality, and they're going to start creating friendships offline. And that's what happened in our Friday group is everybody got to know each other personally. And 2 people got married already. It's only been 5 years. People help each other out financially. We help each other out emotionally and spiritually. And that's the vision for what I see coming. And if any of you have any questions or want to talk to me, and have any details, I purposely put my email up here. So shoot me an email at magazine@proton.me. If you guys are driving and can't look, that's MAGASCENE, the place to be, at proton.me. And thank you for letting me share all that on your show, Joe. And it's a real honor and a God thing for me that it was with you.
I'm going to ask you something because I don't even think you realize the connections that you made when it comes to my trauma and my experience. But did I hear you say there was a book or something in the works?
Well, I'm still talking with Theo about it. I'm not sure. I think because he's so popular in Canada, I think that I would be more than happy to step out of that role and let him find a Canadian co-author and a Canadian publisher, because he could do much, much better than working with an American like me, I think.
Okay. Well, here's why I asked. My trauma, or rather my recovery from, was based in a 12-step program. Right? You talked about 12 people. And that self-help program was guided by a book, but it was really self-help. So it was a whole lot of sharing experiences, and it was really traumatized people helping traumatized people. And it is, when the court system and the law stays out of it, it's a very successful program. I'm talking about AA or NA or whatever A you want to. In Philly, we say, go to NA, AA, NEA, as long as it's not KNA, which is Kensington and Allegheny, which is really funny because it was only about 10 blocks from the rally I went to 2 days ago. But yeah, it's interesting that you picked the number 12, because those 12 steps saved my life, which is kind of where I'm coming. Well, I can't say that it was the only thing, but it was a huge part of my process. And these types of groups, exactly like what you guys are talking about. So.
Well, go ahead, Mike.
No, I just wanted to add in to this that, both Scott and I and Joe, I know you've been through your own, battles for sure. But what I will say is that, yes, we are facilitating these groups, and we are going to be running, these groups, but we are also, patients, if you will. We're also, we're also doing these groups for our own, mental health, because when you deal with mental health issues, it's like it is a constant battle. I mean, anybody that's ever been through anxiety and depression, that there are peaks and valleys, of it. I mean, and there can be some weeks and some days where it just feels like it's never ending, and then you have a couple of good days, and then it comes back. So it's a never ending battle. I mean, with what I talk about in in Flynn movie, just this idea of PTSD. It's a lot of the symptoms of anxiety and depression are very, very similar to having PTSD, and it's something that you could say that time does heal, but there's still things that will remind you or kick in those memories that that kind of kick in your PTSD into hyperdrive. So for me, I mean, the interest level for me, I was all in the second that I started joining these Zoom calls with Scott, and then he mentioned like, hey, let's do more groups, let's do more of this. Like, oh, you mean like outside of the 48-hour Zoom telethons that you do on Friday and Saturday? Oh, you mean we can do this more than that? I'm like, I'm in. Like, I would love to do. I could do this. I feel like right now, because this is my excitement level for this, I feel like I could do this every day, because for me, the power is in the sharing. For me, the power is in the not feeling ashamed of talking about things that I know and the three of us know affect millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the question is what's going to make our groups different than any other, groups that you can join out there. I think you're going to get involved with it's going to be the people. It really is. It's going to be folks like myself and Scott, and again, you know what you're getting into when you join these groups. I mean, we are America first, red-blooded patriots who love the Constitution, love freedom, love the Second Amendment, and that's what you're going to get. He and I are very like-minded, and obviously, we expect there to be more like-minded people that would join in. But Scott and I have been back and forth on this. It's like, we're not going to turn anybody away. Anybody that's willing to have a discussion, even if you're on the other side of the aisle, excuse me. We're here to hear your stories. I mean, right. I've personally heard over the last 2.5 months with this tour that that the 12 of us, ironically enough, just toured the country, and after every one of these showings, just the people that would come up to me and like the emotion that I shared with some of these folks, and I'm getting like emotional right now, just like thinking about some of these mothers who came up to me and like threw their arms around me and said, my son just committed suicide two weeks ago, or I have a sister that just committed suicide, and thank you for talking about this in an open way, and giving those who watch this movie the courage to not be afraid, not feel ashamed to talk about things that are very, very deep and personal. I mean, these are deep personal issues. And Joe, I don't know your full story, and I would like to get to know your full story and like to get to know you better as a person, because again, that's where the power lies. The power lies in being able to share and connect. That's what we need to do, and that's why these groups are going to be very powerful.
100%. Beer, I know you probably have thoughts, but hold it for 1 second, because I got a question and I want to direct it to you first. Let me do the podcast thing. So real quick, I want to run through and say thank you before I lose everybody, as I already lost some. I know Lord of the Pepe donated $2. Thanks for being here, Mike and Beer. That was a hat tip and a thank you to you guys. And then John Henry Bunzo said, hey, brother, I recall you sending a rant to Badlands Media, DPH, when driving home from the rally in Philly. Lived in North Philly, Kensington from 56 to 95. Devine and McKinney. Family lived in Levittown. So I actually lived in a recovery house in Levittown, and I was homeless on Kip and Cambria in Kensington. So I know exactly the area you're talking about. It's good to see you, friend. Thank you very much for supporting Defender of the Republic. Gotta love Cody. She is the bomb. Love that chick. This is so needed. Glad there will be a place for healing. Thank you to the three of you for all you do. Thank you, Cody. We appreciate you very, very much. And then the gold pills. I'll tell you what, gold pills, because you guys are loading them up. I don't want to push you off. I hope you stay for the whole show. I'm going to do the gold pills at the end of the show. I hope that doesn't discourage you from supporting the show. I appreciate you guys all very, very much. But there's been a bunch of you. So I thank you. And I will run through everybody here at the end. Real quick, just to thank the people that support the show. Mike Lindell, he's out here supporting everybody. So if you do go over to Mike Lindell's website, as I do believe he's a huge part of continuing the conversation through these 4 years that we've dealt with the Biden administration. Mike Lindell deserves our support. And if you support him and want to support the show, please use promo code Rambo. And then obviously my favorite right now that we're using to support this show and support a whole bunch of amazing other patriots is kofefi.coffee. So if you want to support all your favorite patriots, anons alike, there's Boone Cutler, talk about the Flynn movie, right? There's a whole bunch of great people on this page. Coffees alike, there's Enoch, probably the most queued anon there is out there. Pepe Deluxe, there's Defender, who just gifted the show. Please go support Cody. She's got her own coffee on here. There's Beer at the Parade, literally on your screen as we speak. And I might be a little partial to Rambo Roast. So
just so you guys know, I picked the darkest roast we had because one, I grew up on Army coffee and I like it so thick you can put a swizzle stick in the middle and it stands. And two, that is the roast to have if you've had too many beers at the parade the night before. You want to wake up with a throat punch. So,
all right. So here's my question, Beer. I wonder if anybody's considered this. My brain works a little different because of the trauma I've been through and because of the self-help programs. So there's a huge underlying goal in the programs that I've been in that has helped, like I said, to save my life. And that is taking responsibility, right? There's certain things you do where you make amends, right? You go and basically figure out the way that you can correct the wrongs that you've done in your past, right? Just an example of taking responsibility. Now, there's a thing, I talk about my trauma, but I'm pretty far separated at this point, except for that I'm still dealing with some consequences, hence the battle for my son. What I've learned in that decade since I've gotten clean is that taking responsibility helped combat and deal with and help me grow from the trauma, right? But as I've gotten to this point further on in the process, I've started to realize that though that responsibility saved me, there are some other aspects to society and politics and globalism in general that also need to take some responsibility, which is where I think local action equals national impact starts to connect, right? So if we look at, pick a topic, drug addiction, 3-letter agencies and protecting poppy fields in Afghanistan, the crack epidemic and the CIA. I feel like if you really get down to this in the root, once you deal with the trauma, there are things that we can do within this trauma-based therapy to motivate people politically. Does that make sense? Has anybody considered that?
people are trying to find their what's next. That's and when I say people, I'll talk about my small circle of friends, and and most of us have been in this movement pretty much since Trump came down the escalator. And then, that Q thing happened, which really, I was very apathetic and apolitical. And even though I found it amusing that Trump won, I still didn't know the measure of the man. I still thought of him as that self-aggrandizing guy on The Apprentice and whatnot. And then Q woke me up. So I found that thing November 2nd of 17. So I wasn't that late to the party, 5 days. And we all invested insane amount of hours for the years that then ensued in digging and researching and learning and then forming friendships and whatnot. And as Q went away and the job was done and we let them steal the elections, it had to be this way. We couldn't tell the people, we had to show them. Then we all started looking for, well, what can we do? Being a keyboard warrior and a researcher was good when it was needed. What's next? And that's the question I kept asking myself. What can I go do that will make a difference in this world? And I know I'm not alone in that. And so what Mike and I are about to go do fits in line with what I've learned about leaving a legacy. I'm 62 years old. I hope I got another 20 or 30 in me, but I don't know. So what kind of legacy can I leave in this world? And the only way I know to leave a legacy that never ends is not money or buildings. Those are temporary, but it's to build people that learn how to go build other people. And that's why what we're doing is going to be a learning and healing process for both me and Mike. And we're both comfortable because we know God is supporting this, is that we're just going to jump off the cliff together and start building the plane on the way down with no fear of dying. So that's kind of where we are on this.
I'll add to that. And this goes to something that Joe just said, which I think is very, very important when it comes to, taking responsibility and self accountability. In fact, I wrote those two phrases down because I know for me, and I will share this. So November 13th, 2022 was the day that I decided to call my doctor up and tell him to never prescribe me another prescription drug again. I took Adderall for more than 2 decades of my life, and I was not properly diagnosed. And I was one of those kids that was in college and had a friend that knew a doctor that was like, yeah, go say this, and this to them. And I was off and running, and been through 4 different health insurance companies. And I no longer deal with health insurance companies, but every doctor subsequently just kept on, renewing my prescription. And it was one of those prescriptions that is probably one of the most abused prescriptions on the planet, maybe next to, OxyContin and others. I mean, the list is endless. But why I'm saying that is because I just got to the point one day where I was tired of allowing prescription drugs to dictate how I live my life. And so I had to, maybe you can call it a feeling, maybe it was God talking to me, but it was just one day I just said to myself, nobody could tell me to call my doctor to say this to him. Nobody could tell me, that, oh, you have I knew I had a problem, and, family of mine knew that I had a problem. Friends of mine, even my ex-wife, something, one of the reasons why, I've been divorced now since end of 2022. And, that is what it is. I'm still, you still deal with what you deal with, but the self accountability aspect of this is very, very important. And part of what these groups that were, this is a way for people to take self accountability by just joining a group. You know what I mean? You don't have to go anywhere. You can just literally hop on and do a group with other like-minded folks who want to share, who are not ashamed of saying things like what I just, I actually haven't talked about that, that too publicly. And I'm not afraid to, because it's a part of my story. And it's a part of, like, if you knew me 3-4 years ago, obviously that was right in the thick of when my family and I were going through all the Russiagate nonsense. But I abused prescription medication more than I should. And that allowed me to, or it didn't allow me to, being a prescription or a abuser of one thing typically makes you an abuser of other things. And I definitely abuse other things, other substances that don't exactly make your mind and your body function properly. And so I'm happy to say that I have been clean since November 13, 2022. My mind and my heart are as free as they have ever been. I'm in a much happier place now, but I still battle, and the battles every day. And I want to be able to talk to as many people. And you know what, Scott and I have talked about this before. It's like, even if he and I get into a group and there's 10 other guys with us and they don't say a damn word, they're gonna hear Scott and I talk. I mean, if nothing else, you're gonna hear us. You're gonna hear us tell our stories, because again, the power's in the sharing. So, and you'll hear me say that probably 1,000 more times.
Every time I just open myself up and be transparent and vulnerable, I don't hesitate to cry in front of other people. I don't hesitate to share my real feelings. And every time I do it, I feel a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter as I'm wafting up through my ascension process. So I've got nothing to hide from anybody. I think Mike is the same way. And we're just looking forward to giving safe spaces where people can finally let go of things they've been carrying around for too long.
100%.
Joe, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I got kids stomping around, so I don't
okay.
typically do that. There's a parallel I want to draw again, and I don't mean to make it always about the programs that I went through, but it's my experience, and I think it translates across the board when it comes to trauma. But there was something that I learned going through there where there's a bit of a selfish aspect, and you don't look at it that way when it happens, but what they say is that you can only keep what you have by giving it away. There's a spiritual level to that. So a lot of times you will help people that don't stay sober or don't heal or don't recover or whatever it might be. However, in that process, you do.
Mm-hmm.
So giving back and helping humanity for me is it's like a connection with God. It's a spiritual thing where it helps me walk in God's footsteps. And whether or not the other person accepts or takes responsibility or does what it takes and then turns and helps others is not necessarily on me. But by going through that process, I have healed myself. So I don't, it shouldn't be selfish, but there is a selfish aspect to it. Helping others will help you. It just does. And it gives something away. How good does that feel? It feels way better than receiving something.
Mm-hmm.
Every time.
Joe, that's 100%. I mean, in this, hopefully I don't get emotional talking about, every time I talk about my son. So my son just turned 7 in April, and unfortunately I wasn't, we were on this tour, and it was the first birthday that I missed, but I was able to get home for a day or two. But, and this kind of touches on the last story that I just told. I know that I had to take care of myself. The whole selfish aspect of this stuff is, it's real, because self accountability is important, but being able to take care of yourself first, I had to do that. I had to change something in my life, because I didn't want my son growing up, knowing that I had, this kind of demon, on my shoulder, so to speak. Right. And, it's important. I mean, it's really important that, that you take care of yourself physically and mentally, if you have any desire, any intention of taking care of anybody else in your life, especially a child.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't state that any clearer. Like, I know if I was to continue the direction that I was going in my life with the substances that I was putting in my body, that at some point, something terrible could have happened. When it came to, maybe neglecting my son, one day because I was too high on something, or you know what I mean? Like I just that's a very real reality. And so it's not, I agree with you, Joe. It's not, it's and maybe this is why some people don't take care of themselves initially, because it's great to want to help others, but if you don't help yourself first, you're not going to be able to do the job for others. I just don't think it's possible. And if you're able to do it, tell me your secret.
You're right.
And I will say that since Mike and I started having meaningful conversations about this, we started talking about pricing, and we tried to figure out how we could do this where most everybody could afford to be in a group with a professional counselor. And we settled on $99 a month. And then we thought, even if somebody doesn't have that, that's an amount of money anybody could pretty much borrow from anybody else. But then we said, what if somebody's truly down and out, and maybe the cause of their trauma is lack of money? We said, if somebody really wants or needs in, we'll just foot the bill for them. And he and I will take care of that on our own. And then as soon as we had the thought, God gave me another thought and said, open it up and let people sponsor other people if they want. Because not everybody's hurting financially right now. And I think people would feel good about giving a leg up to somebody who's really down on their luck, but still needs to be part of a group and work their way back. So we think that we're going to open it up. And if somebody, I guess it's like a restaurant, you know what I mean? I couldn't run a restaurant knowing that there's people out front paying for their food and enjoying their meal, and we get a knock at the back door and it's somebody that's homeless and hungry and down on their luck, I would go find a way to feed that person. And Mike's the same way.
Yeah. So
we think that that's what we're going to do. And we're both open to whatever God wants us to do, in terms of pricing or whatnot. But we felt that was a number that, as people are cutting their cable, they're paying $100 a month. Well, they just freed up that money to maybe do something like this. So we're open for thoughts and feedback on that.
Well, the thing is, I mean, we would, the reality is we would love to be able to do this, to do this for free. But again, it's a time, it takes a lot of time. I mean, doing groups and again, I mean, like as facilitators, we're also going to be involved in the discussion, pouring our own hearts out, to the masses and allowing them to hear from us and allowing, them to hear, stories that are relatable, you know what I mean? And so, we're willing to work with anybody about this. And we also have a really, really big network of not just counselors and therapists, but I live here in Florida, and General Flynn did an event down at this place called the Hollow in Venice, Florida, and this was maybe a year or two into COVID, where we basically had doctors from around the state, come to the event. And I think they wrote permission slips or something. I remember there was a lot of doctors that were writing permission slips to get people from avoid having to take the vaccine or something like that with their job. And so I say that because whether it's a counselor or a therapist that helps us with this effort, we'll be able to direct them to I use that term like-minded because again, it's unfortunately, with how divisive things are, nowadays, I mean, I personally want to know, I would love to know the politics of somebody who I'm going to trust with my medical care, with my mental health care. It's just the nature of the world we're living in. If you're going to be vulnerable, if you don't want to feel shame, I mean, it's I will tell you that. So I was talking to a counselor. I do have a therapist down in this area, but it took me a number of months to find somebody that I had to vet through 2 or 3 different people, and come to find out that that this person was actually a friend of my Aunt Valerie or something like that, and so there's a level of trust that has to be there when it comes to a person's medical care and when it comes to a person's mental health care. And so yeah, we are asking folks to trust us to the degree that they want. But that's why I said before, you're gonna know what you're getting into. You're gonna know like who we are. You're gonna know, you're gonna know what our politics are. I mean, if you don't know at this point, just look at either one of our social media feeds. I mean, I'm on X at Real M Flynn Jr. and I'm on Truth, and I have a little bit of a following on Telegram, but we want people to be comfortable, and why they would come to see, why they would come to join our groups and pay a membership to these groups is because they know that they're going to be around like-minded people that they can trust with, and not feel that sense of shame, when it comes to opening up about very, very personal issues, and I'm reading that comment right now. Yeah, know the politics. Most counselors are. That world in and of itself, the world of psychology and psychiatry. It's, I don't want to make any generalizations, but I agree with that. I agree with that sentiment. About
Mike. Let me read a Rumble rant to you as well, and I want to give an experience on this. So, the real JJ14 said, "I love this idea. NA groups in my area are full of pedophiles and leftards, and at times I'm in desperate need of like-minded veterans of the fentanyl wars to reach out to. Where do I sign up?" Now, before you guys answer or go on this, I want to tell you that I went through a process in sobriety and trauma where I gotta be honest, I was pretty liberal, right? You don't end up kind of homeless and in the position I was in without, in my opinion, in my experience, having that mindset kind of to begin with. I was a victim of, participation trophies, and you don't talk about politics or church or abortion, right? We all kind of went through that, and through some other abuses and things and things that I also need to take responsibility for. I certainly wasn't a victim. I ended up in those rooms with a lot of those pedophiles and leftards. And you know what it took? First of all, I want to promote what you guys are saying, because it is amazing that you're trying to put something together that is a safe space politically to have these conversations. But at the same time, I do believe that the country should be unified at the end of this process. And that will take patience with people that have done things like what the real JJ is talking about. So if it's not healthy for your recovery, by all means, find some place that is. It's not what I'm saying. However, I do think that there's a level of patience that needs to. I went through it and I came out the other side, Joe Rambo, right? So it's possible that anybody can recover from drug addiction, alcoholism, abuse, right on down the line, all trauma that we've all been through.
Well, one of the things that he and I have been discussing is that it's timing. And I've been involved in quite a few starting up small businesses. I have never seen one that is this simple, and there's so much demand. And I'm telling you that the people that are still sleeping, when they wake up, and they're going to wake up, the first thing they're going to be feeling is a lot of trauma caused by cognitive dissonance, because when they start realizing that they were wrong about Trump, that they were wrong about a lot of things, then that means that their subconscious mind will have to reset all of their values and beliefs when they come to that horrific realization that their entire life was built on lies and propaganda, spoon-fed through the media and the entertainment industry and all of it. And they're going to need help. And we want to be in a position where we can grow these groups quickly and efficiently so people can go get some help. It's coming. And just look at it this way. Trump has never once played any of his Trump cards. He's just been on defense now for 7 to 8 years. Well,
I don't know about that.
Well, I don't want to pick nits, but do you think that he's sitting on evidence he hasn't even thrown out in the world yet?
I think a whole lot of Trump cards been played. We've just been showing something else.
Another show for another day, Joe.
Yep, it's a whole nother show.
I want to jump in. I just want to jump in and reiterate, because some of the at least the comments I'm seeing, just this idea about talking about politics in general. I mean, look, politics is everywhere. I don't. This is something that I firmly believe, and I think a lot of people agree. It's like, and it's unfortunate because you used to be able to go on vacation to visit your folks, to visit family, and and maybe not talk politics or religion or about religion, right? So it used to be politics and religion. Well, look, because of the speed of information, because of the access to information, politics has infected every single aspect of our lives, of society. So I think it's actually, I think we actually need to embrace that. And if people haven't embraced it, you really need to. I mean, you can't avoid talking about the biggest issues in this country right now without without offering an opinion that is obviously on one side or the other. And no, do I want to create division? No, I don't want to create division. But unfortunately, it's where are people getting their information? I mean, I believe that X is where people should get their their information. I mean, among maybe a few other platforms, but this again, I go back to this idea of what we're doing and what makes what Scott and I are doing unique. You're going to know my politics. You're going to know Scott's politics. I mean, again, it's not going to take long to do a quick, to do quick research on, on He or I to know, kind of what our backgrounds are. And so, I say that because I'm not going to be afraid. I will never be afraid to tell you, what I believe and kind of why I believe the things that I do. I mean, if you follow my X account, I mean, I'm as blunt of a person. I'm no Gunther. What's his last name? Engelman. I mean, he has, his account is pretty. I mean, he's about as blunt of a person as you'll ever meet. But again, it's unavoidable. The point is that talking about politics is unavoidable, and naturally in these in these group sessions, I imagine a lot of the conversation is like, God, can you believe that that news story that came out today, another shooting, and this side is blaming the guns and that side is blaming mental health, and we can never seem to come to any kind of consensus as to how to deal with the issue. You know what I mean? It's like we're so I'm on my soapbox now when it comes to that particular issue, because this is one of those issues that, like, I don't know if we're ever going to get to a point on that one issue alone where we're ever going to agree on a solution, because it's such a divisive issue now that, like, when a shooting happens, it's like it's so accepted. Like, we accept the fact that, like, yeah, people are going to friggin' die because nobody wants to address, like, gun friggin' free zones or gun like schools that don't employ more officers at their schools, right? I mean, it's like, but that's such a contentious issue that I don't see. I mean, there's solutions there, don't get me wrong, but I don't see how, from a political standpoint, we unless we allow this guy in office to get reelected, and then we'll be talking about a whole generational shift in in certain things. I mean, you get the Supreme Court to flip the other way. I mean, God help us, but I don't know. I went on that little rant there because I still hear, even when I've been at these events, it's like, well, that my mother-in-law or my sister or my brother, like, they don't really like to talk about politics, or they don't really pay attention to things. It's like, get them to pay attention. Like, figure out a way to get people engaged in something. Get them to engage in one issue that they can become passionate about. I mean, most voters are one issue voters anyways, right? I mean, you come on a podcast like this, you're gonna develop a sense of knowledge on a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, like, people end up voting because they're pro-choice or pro-life, right? I mean, it's like, and it's unfortunate, but we would love to have a more well-rounded society that knows about all these different issues, that can speak intelligently on them. But that's not the world we live in. So it's okay to talk about politics. It's just okay, and we need to encourage people to embrace that conversation when it comes their way.
Amen. So let me do one thing quick. Guys out there on all 4 platforms that you're on, if you're enjoying this conversation, please, the biggest thing you can do to support the show is just hit that positive affirmation button, whether it be the thumbs up on Rumble, thumbs up on YouTube, take that red pill on pill.net, or just share the show out and hit the like button on Twitter. I would greatly appreciate it. Mike, I want to ask you a question that might dig just a bit into your psyche personally. Okay. I've heard you multiple times refer to your father as General Flynn. Do you ever call him Dad?
Wow, you're one of many people who have actually asked me that. I think it's because it's 2024 now. I've been working for him since the end of 2014. So wow, it's a decade now, right? I think I call him General Flynn more than I do Dad. If you ask me when I can remember the last time I called him Dad, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I just, maybe it's a respect thing. I don't really even realize that I'm doing it sometimes. I think General Flynn just kind of rolls off the tongue easier. But I think, that's kind of how everybody refers to him anyways. I guess going back maybe a few years when we quote unquote kind of branded him, if you will, when we started his website, generalflynn.com. My whole world for like the first year was putting his website together and so again, I think it's as simple as that. I mean, I didn't consciously decide one day to just start calling him General Flynn. I certainly didn't call him, General Flynn before, 2014, but, there are times, I mean, you really did ask an interesting question, my friend.
You're going to hate my follow-up question.
No. Well, I think, look, my father and I have an interesting relationship. I mean, I will tell you that, the Russiagate stuff, and you saw in the movie, they did everything that they could to put a divide between he and I, because, that's what corruption does. That's what the DOJ and the Mueller Mueller team wanted to do, was they wanted to make it such that he had no other choice but to plead guilty because of what they were coming after me with. And so, I say all that because I guess there are times where it makes sense for me to call him Dad. I mean, but he and I don't really have like intimate feelings oriented. I mean, I mentioned before that my father's not that kind of guy. I mean, he's a warm guy, don't get me wrong, but our relationship has, and it improves here and there. But he and I are still kind of going through our own recovery, if you will, from what happened with all the Russiagate stuff. I will tell you that the tour did help out a little bit. I mean, so, those of you that are out there that went to some of the tour stops, you saw he and I get up on stage after the movie was played, and I mean, after every excuse me, after every single showing, we had we received a standing ovation. But he and I standing on stage together was a very powerful thing for he and I. Allowed us to kind of embrace each other and not really have to say anything to each other, but to know that hey, we've come a long way from where we were in 2017, and then that Jimmy Levy video, that beautiful song that he did for us, that we played after every one of the showings, really just kind of hit home for me. I couldn't watch it after every showing because I freaking cried my damn eyes out. But anyways, that's kind of a long-winded answer to a very interesting question.
Well, here's the follow-up, so buckle up. Okay. So in 2028, will you be calling him Mr. President or President Flynn?
What's funny is my next line of questions was similar. Go ahead.
Look, I would love to be a fly on the wall. When he and President Trump have have conversation. I don't know about all. There's so much speculation out there. Like, oh, Trump's gonna like the VP is gonna be at at the debate. When is it? Next Thursday or something like that.
Yep.
So if that is the case, and if that's true, that the VP is going to be at the debate next week, I hate to break it to your listeners, but General Flynn and my mother are Oconus right now, and they will be Oconus until July 17th. So anybody?
17th,
yep, July 17th. Yep. So again, if Trump, I don't know if he'll make any announcement. I mean, he didn't really announce his vice president until after the convention. So, again, this could be Trump's way of, playing up the media. I mean, do I trust anything that comes out of anybody's inner circle at any time in any way, shape, or form? Hell no, I don't. I mean, is Trump actively like sitting in, amongst his, inner circle saying, oh, you know what? Let's throw these names out there. Let's see what the public has to say. I believe stuff like that. I believe that it would be insane for him to even consider a guy like Marco Rubio or even a guy like Tim Scott. I mean, do people forget that Tim Scott endorsed Lisa Murkowski, who hates Trump, but he endorsed? I mean, people forget about these things. Like Tim Scott endorsed Lisa Murkowski, I think, back in 2022 for her reelection campaign. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, people love Tim Scott. I mean, nice guy, don't get me wrong, but it's like, we have to remember who these guys, we have to remember their histories. This is why it's important to keep up with some of these people who are now in the quote unquote running. I mean, this Doug, what's his name? Governor Doug Burnham, is that his name?
I believe so. Yeah.
I mean, who the hell is this guy? I never heard of him until like a month ago. So I mean, again, I keep wanting to scream at the top of my lungs on X, like, folks, like, enough of the speculation. Because I even see like the Charlie Kirks out there who, sources say, or I'm hearing rumblings of this. You know what? Rumblings aren't shit. Rumblings aren't shit. It's when President Trump comes out of the podium and he says, "This is my VP pick." That's when I'll believe who the hell the VP is. Okay, but all this other nonsense is exactly what it is. It's nonsense. I mean, I don't know. I liked what Scott said earlier about the VP role being kind of redefined. I personally can see my father in a number of different positions that would make it easier for him to quote unquote castrate the deep state, whether that is President Trump's national security advisor again or SecDef. I mean, I think that what I do know is that whatever position it would be, and it will be, I know that my father, one of his only conditions, one of his main conditions is going to be, I don't want to deal with anybody else but the president. I don't want to talk to anybody else. I want, not that he didn't have, carte blanche to the president when he was the national security advisor in 2016, but he still had to deal with the likes of like a Reince Priebus and the communications director, or Secretary Sean Spicer, right? He still had to deal with, Trump's, the snakes around him. It's like, no, I want to deal with President Trump and President Trump alone, and I want carte blanche access to go into every single agency, and even those that aren't part of the intel community. And I want to be able to say, get rid of the Department of Education, get rid of, so many of these friggin' buildings in Washington, D.C. I mean, if you walk down Constitution Avenue, you have no idea what's going on with some of these, with some of these agencies. They're huge buildings. Like, what are the people inside these buildings doing? Like, the Department of Education is one of the biggest buildings in Washington, D.C. And we're 23 or 24, like, in education in the country. Like, that doesn't make sense. Afuera, get rid of that shit. All right.
I think you mispronounced Department of Indoctrination by accident.
Look, I don't know if what I'm about to say is a strength or a weakness, but I have this innate ability to recall Trump's words because I do exactly what you just referenced. I deal with Trump's words and Trump's words only.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because he talks out both sides of his mouth all the time. He speaks in double and triple meaning almost every time he speaks. I just went to the rally 2 days ago, and it blew my mind as I'm sitting here watching people take what he's saying emotionally rather than step back, like I said, and process it rationally. He told us the news is fake. He told us they're the ones that are really under investigation. He told us that the indictments were fake, that it was a Joe Biden indictment. I personally don't believe that that's really Joe Biden, is what it is. The only person that ever ends up being right about everything is Trump. So when he says these things, I look at everything else that's being pumped at us from the mainstream media as a distraction or an emotional ploy to motivate us to get up and stand up and do something about it. So all of these debates are fun. I think they further the plan. I think everyone should learn how our government works. I think that trying to debate who's helping the country and who's not, that's why I don't necessarily just bang everybody that says, hey, Flynn's a traitor. Well, okay, so let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. If you don't want to have a conversation and you just want to scream traitor, then I'll block, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to have a conversation, I believe that furthers what we're going through. It's okay. Let's talk about it, right? So I don't know. I do want to, since we're starting to run a little bit out of time, I do want to put you in like just a couple little bit of weird positions if you're okay with it. I don't mind spin moves. I don't mind it at all. And I'm nothing but respectful, just like I said, to begin with. Is this okay with you?
Sure. Let's roll. Let's do it.
All right. So I saw your dad give the oath.
Okay.
Very early on. The oath is what I'm talking about is Q. Can I just ask you what you think of the drops of Q?
All right. So here's because I've been asked this before. One of the things that I did, in 2016 and 2017 a lot was I followed a lot of the 4chan and like 8chan, message boards and some of the drops. And one of the things for me, and this gets to the emotional aspect of, when I would hear the phrase trust the plan. Okay. I really bought into, I bought into it and I really thought that, I really thought there was a lot of good behind it. But for me personally, dealing with the legal system and how, and what my family was going through and the never ending kind of, battle with corrupt judges, I got to a place emotionally where, we would expect there to be resolution, with the next legal filing, right? So that would be 3 months, and then no resolution. Then it'd be another 6 months, and then it'd be a year, and then it'd be 2 years. So I got to a place emotionally with the drops and that the trust the plan aspect where I guess I got frustrated with it. Because I'm just like, well, shit, man, if there's a plan in place, it ain't moving fast enough for my family. It's not moving fast enough for me. It's not moving fast enough, for Trump. It seems like the world around me is crumbling. It's like, so again, I'm just trying to paint a picture as to where my head was emotionally. And so, look, I've had a lot of time to reflect on the, on the Anon community, if you will. I've spoken to folks about it. What I am in favor of is the fact that people have, it was something that caused a lot of people to do very extensive research. Unfortunately, some of that research can take you into some incorrect rabbit holes, if you will. And I think that was one of the drawbacks that I saw of it. But I don't discount the, some of the things that have been said over the years by Trump or by those in his inner circle that have been related to, previous, decodes. So, look, I'm a student of wanting to, be better in my thinking of towards things that I know a lot of people are invested in. And so, for me, that is talking to, more folks, like Scott and certainly you, Joe, that, to just be more cognizant of knowing that, that there are a lot of truths out there when it comes to some of the stuff that are in those decodes. But again, for me personally, because I have been, I was public in the past, even even on X, about my my disdain for Q and what I had originally thought about the Q movement in and of itself. But it was coming from a very emotional place, because I just got so frustrated with what my family was dealing with that I didn't really know how to. I was looking for more tangible things, and I would like to say that I've become more of a patient person, but I wasn't patient back then.
Yeah.
So
and the one aspect of it I'll never hesitate to talk about was we were told over and over and over again that this isn't a political battle. This is good versus evil. And we are in a spiritual war. And one of my favorite drops was only 5 words: read the Bible, God wins. And in fact, I noticed you have that on your armband today.
Yeah.
That's
right.
So, that's, even though we won't be overtly, I guess, Christian in our group approach, I certainly would never be shy to talk about my belief in Jesus. But also, if people want healing, they better turn to God first and start there. Everything else is just everything else. If you don't have a good relationship with God, this is your chance to go find one. And if you don't know how to get started, get a hold of me. My email's right there. I'll help you find God.
I don't know that either one of you even asked to respond to this. Although you're more than welcome to if you'd like. I consider myself, I've said it many times, to be a second generation Anon, right? So I wasn't on the boards when a lot of these things in Q, what I asked you about before, were dropping and everybody was digging and going down rabbit holes, whether it be true or false or whatever. But I have been blessed enough to have a perspective that I bring up all the time, which is hindsight is 2020. And I almost said your dad, but your General Flynn, your General Flynn also started telling everybody about local action equals national impact. And again, I tried to step back and look at things without emotion, because that hurt a bunch of people's feelings, the way that your dad talked about the boards and stuff at a certain period of time. Well, it started to become abundantly clear to me, at least I believe it's abundantly clear, that the trust the plan was misunderstood, in my opinion.
Sure.
And a lot of people, including the deep state, really pumped the misunderstanding where, like, people were led to believe that someone was coming to save them and that they could put their feet up on the desk and allow that to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that that's the truth at all. And I don't believe that that's what Q ever meant. I believe that when you look at the drops, there's one specifically that talks about this has never been attempted before. And the way the drop ends is military-civilian alliance. The way that I take that drop and many other things that I've read on the boards, especially after looking through just about every Anon there is, especially listening to people like your father and Boone, I have come to the belief that I truly believe there is a top-down operation going on. When they say trust the plan, I believe that there is. Look, I can't fight George Soros. I can't fight the central banking system. I certainly can't fight against bioweapons labs in Ukraine or the Azov battalion, or whatever the hell they're called, the Nazis in Ukraine. I certainly don't know what's going on in Israel. I can't figure that out. I can't make heads or tails of it, to be honest with you. However, I do believe that we're going through a process that was to motivate, just like your father talks about. Local action equals national impact. If all of this above us is going on and it's exposing the realities that were being hidden from us as a country and a world, then what it's meant to do is to motivate us to do what I would call the other side of the plan. We were always the plan. We were meant to stand up and do something. Look, just like I can't fight George Soros, Donald Trump can do nothing about your school board.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is not going to be able to do anything about your your city governor or mayor or whatever
Yeah.
the hell it might be. So they're not going to do anything about pornographic books that have now been placed in your child's library.
Yeah.
So the exposure level, what I believe is the Q operation. This is just my belief. I'm not putting it on you. I believe that it was to motivate us to get up and stand up, unite, and do something about it. I absolutely 100% can't possibly look at all the coincidence mathematically and think that it's possible that there isn't a top-down operation going on. There is. That's my belief. But it's also meant for us to stand and unite, and we squash all of that corruption out in the middle, and we take the whole freaking world back, and we take our country back. So when I put you in the position to ask you about Q, I genuinely wanted to hear, and I hope I didn't put you in an uncomfortable spot, but I did want to make the point that I think your dad was right the whole time. I just think that your dad was put in a position, being as high up as he is in this movement, only barely removed, honestly, from Donald Trump, that of course he said some of those things. He's talking to the masses.
Yeah.
Most people's brains aren't capable of decoupling from that emotion. So they all believed they were going to be, you guys are just being saved, Operation Trust, the Bolshevik Revolution, all the shit that was thrown at us to discredit the movement clouded everyone's vision, where I truly believe the message has always been there, and it's completely 100% true. You don't have to agree. That's just what I believe.
Yeah. So what I'll say, just with regard to how I've heard him respond to folks, and especially when we've been at events when he's talked about this idea of local action, national impact. It's this idea of what can you control, right? It's there are influencers out there. There are people in positions where they can influence and they can speak to a certain level of society when it comes to messaging and influence, right? And so it's obviously the accounts that you see on the variety of social media platforms. But when we come across a lot of these folks, and I've experienced this to some degree, not as much as my father certainly, but people are nervous. They're scared. They feel alone for a reason. And it's because they feel like they're not being listened to by their own government. They feel like their government is out to screw them. That's the one thing about social media. I believe social media is the best and worst thing to ever happen to the human race, but such is life. That's where we're at now. So I think that this idea that he tries to get people to think about is like, while it's difficult, stop worrying about what's happening in Washington, D.C. and New York City and some of these coastal elitist cities. It's not that you can't pay attention, but don't stress yourself out. Don't not go outside. Don't not live your everyday life because of something that that Adam Schiff said on Twitter an hour ago, right? Or something that Nancy Pelosi said, and that was recorded in a conversation about January 6th. I mean, that story was in the freaking news for like 12 hours, and it's like we're not even talking about it anymore, right? I mean, the freaking boat that ran into the bridge, and what was it?
Baltimore.
In Baltimore, right? It's like where'd that freaking story go, right? So again, it's like these things that we can and can't control. I mean, I personally try to boil things down, to make them as simplistic as possible, because I think trying to complicate things is where people run into those feelings, thoughts, and emotions of anxiety and just feeling a sense of overwhelmed, right? And so my father is very good at, when he talks to people at these events, making them feel like they're the only person in the room that he's talking to, and he's very blunt with them, like, hey, and I've heard them say this, like, if you don't like your dog catcher, go run for local dog catcher. Yes. There's something that you as an individual can do to affect those in your immediate orbit. All right. So, I think, as you can imagine, he's gotten a lot of people that have come up to him and try to and try to talk to him. I mean, again, just imagine that he's got these lines of people that are waiting to talk to him, and It's like he didn't necessarily have the time to sit there and talk about like for example, a decode that they just read, and they want to talk to him and have like a 15-20 minute conversation with them, and he can't do that. So he got to I know that he got to the point where it's not that he didn't want to talk about it, but it's like he had to figure out a way to get people to engage in the things that he could talk to them about within a 5 to 10 minute period, if that makes sense.
I'll say one thing about Q. How many millions of us would have never paid attention to a general being excommunicated a week into Trump's thing? I had never heard of Michael Flynn. And how many millions of us know Michael Flynn because of Q? And I think the blessing is when the deep state went after the Flynn family, I think Americans responded in a very positive way. I hope we helped ease some of the financial pain that poor family was going through. I certainly hope that the letters of love helped buoy them up, their morale a little bit. I can't imagine the struggle, the mental anguish that family was put through, but I'm hoping that we help them out a little bit. That's one of my best hopes.
Yeah, Scott. I mean, that's that's really what it was. I mean, we developed this connection to the American people. I mean, as far back as 2017 when all this began. I mean, the letters didn't start coming in until maybe a year later, but the social media, the direct messages, and I could never get through them just on my end. I can't imagine the amount that my father received as well. But the love from around the country. I mean, people got it. People understood, and this is why I have faith in what is going to happen in November, because I believe that there have been times in this country's history where the American spirit has been fucking tested. All right. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those times. And I believe that we're about to prevail in a very big way. I really do. I feel that it's maybe a gut thing. But God has definitely been directing certain things to have happened, and he will direct those things through some of the things that we're about to do for sure. And I'm looking forward to talking to more people about it.
Joe, I know you need to get this wrapped up real soon, but my last word is I would encourage everybody to go back and rewatch Trump's inaugural address. And I brought that up when I was interviewing General Quast. If you guys don't know who he is, just Google KWAST and set aside a couple hours and have your mind blown. And we were talking about what might happen. He was discussing emerging technologies, particularly in the area of voting, and then creating immediate and lasting transparency into our government. And I said, if you combine that information with what Trump said, and he goes, wow, that's what Trump said was rather prescient, wasn't it? And I said, it sure is looking that way. And Trump said, I'm going to shrink the government. I'm going to then make it transparent. I'm going to put it back in the hands of the American public where it belongs. That means we have to get ready for the hot potato. We weren't ready during his first term. None of us were paying any attention to politics. Most of us weren't. Certainly not to the degree we are now. So if you were part of this genius movement of whatever Q did, did you have scripted it any better? I mean, they actually taught us to play long game. They actually taught us to research unemotionally, and they actually taught us to build groups, to run our theories by each other and to be willing to be wrong and then reset and go dig again and find out the truth. So I think the plan is real. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And they were smart enough to give us everything except timelines. And boy, did we learn our lesson there. So
very true. Very true.
Can I share with you guys the coolest thing I learned at the Trump rally?
Only because it's your show, but yes.
Please, everybody go do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is my personal one. I did this. I took Kim from the rally. We stopped and we got dinner at Chickies and Pete's on the way home. So this is my personal receipt. I did exactly what Donald Trump put up on the screen. I think everybody should do this. I think it is a game ender. It's not just a game changer. This is the final push. You put this, you know how many people I bartended and served for years when I was getting clean and sober? For years. Thousands, millions of hardworking Americans serve other people drinks and food. Write that on every single receipt that you go receive from here to the election. I think it's a game ender.
Oh, the point, Joe, I wanted to make about what's going to change when Trump comes back with the transparency and technologies, and we can in real time watch what these elected officials are doing or not doing. Oh, I had a big point at my age. Oh, if it's done correctly, the president, him or herself, won't have that big of a role. We will be keeping the oven clean by voting people in and out. The president only has so much power, but it's everybody around the president and under the president that if we get the right people in place and we hold them accountable, we can keep a self-cleaning oven running beautifully forever. But it takes all of us to be vigilant and active when it comes to politics on every level.
Amen.
Agreed. So I'm going to put your graphic as it stands right now up on the screen. Would you guys both?
If anybody's got a better name, send me an email. I want to know what it is. Mike and I are still flexible. We just want to get this done right, but we don't want to drag our feet doing it because every day that we delay, how many veterans may have committed suicide or how many people are still hurting. We need to move in all haste. And again, I'm not going to lose time based on not being a perfect name or tagline. People are going to join just when they hear about the good that we're doing.
Well, can you tell everybody so first of all, I want to hear where everybody can find you, social media, whatever you might have going on, or where they can find you as far as that's concerned up to this point.
So you can find me on X, Twitter. I'm at Scott Z Patriot until I get my real account back. And you can find me on Truth at Scott Zimmerman. And if you go to the website that you'll see at magazine.us, watch the little 2-minute video at the top. You'll see that we build it just to help your loved ones awaken gently and properly in the privacy of their own home. And certainly as we get these launched, again, we're aiming for Independence Day for several reasons. There will be things all over that website of resources because it's a 2-step process. So if people follow my philosophy of stop pushing people to wake up, it's a painful process. They're going to need time to do it. You can send them to the website and there'll be in categories, a topic they're waking up to. So for my mom, it would have been child and human trafficking. For my best friend, it would have been 9/11 and other conspiracy theories. And then this way they can listen to interviews, watch interviews, and read Substacks on the topics that they're waking up to, which naturally will make them curious about other topics that we have on the website. And then from that point in time, when they do wake up and they're experiencing cognitive dissonance, they're going to be able to join our groups for help. So it's kind of a 1-2 combination that makes complete sense. And then the website is magazine.us, not .com. And if any of you have any questions about what me and Mike are doing together with these healing groups, again, shoot me an email with your contact info. It's magazine, SCENE, at proton.me. I will respond to every email. And if you want a conversation with me, include your phone number, and I will call everybody who has a question or wants to join a group.
Beer, I just want to say personally, I absolutely love you and your wife, and I look forward to Friday nights. Every time I can be there, I'm there, even if it's in the car or at break at work or whatever. So thank you.
We feel the same about you and Kim as well. So, thank you.
All right, Mike, where can everybody find you, buddy?
Yeah, so on X, I'm at Real M Flynn Jr. and on Truth, I'm just at M Flynn Jr. And you can shoot me a direct message there if for whatever reason you can't reach Scott. I mean, send me a message there and let let either one of us know. We're just trying to certainly gauge interest, but we're going to get this going as soon as possible because, like Scott said, we can't wait any longer to help people through the things that we talked about on this podcast. And so Yeah, just again, X is just at Real M Flynn Jr. and Truth at M Flynn Jr.
And Joe, I'm going to do something you're not expecting. I'm going to ask you to close with a prayer, and I want you to ask God to bless this new business, because I know that as it grows, and it will grow, it's going to create an excess of possibly monies.
You're asking me, you gotta do the public prayer, bro. I'm not good at it.
And just so I just want everybody to know that whatever extra monies we get, we're going to be using for good things, starting off with sponsoring people who are broke. But there's many things that we're going to do with this bounty that's coming, and it will always be to help those who can't help themselves. So with your permission, I would love to close with a prayer.
Absolutely.
Okay. Father, thank you for everything that you've put all of us through, that although we don't see it at the time, that we know that pain and suffering often leads to wisdom. So thank you for all the lessons that you've shown me. Thank you for tempering me my whole life for what's about to happen. I think I'm in the right space at the right time to do your work and to honor you, Lord. So on behalf of Mike, we're just asking you to please bless our business. Help us help as many people as we possibly can, but to always do it under your name. Thank you so much for what is coming, and thank you for the healing that you're going to give to so many people. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Hey, did you see the tan I got at the Trump rally from my hat?
Nice.
That's really funny. Hey, Mike, I want to say to you, but dude, it has been, hold on. Get readjusted here. I don't talk about my hat on. It has been an absolute honor, bro. I don't know how to even express how much it means to me that you came on the show.
Thank you for having me. Anytime.
Yeah, I hope that nothing I asked crossed any lines, because I mean nothing but the utmost respect to you, bro. I look up to you and your whole family, from Mary to your dad to you, on and on.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, absolute blast. So I'm gonna end up dropping you guys down here because I got a whole bunch of thank yous, and I want to let everybody know that Patrick Gunnels will be here on Wednesday. I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm gonna do the whole outro thing, but you guys, both of you, Beer, I love you to death, bro. Mike, it's been an absolute honor. Please tell your dad, tell Boone, you talk to any of them if they want to come hang out and have a conversation with everybody. The door is open. Just say the word. I would love to talk to everybody. So
sounds good.
All right, cool. Thank you, guys.
All right, guys.
All right, bye-bye. Well, how freaking cool was that? Am I the only one that has chills? We just got to hang out with Mike Flynn Jr. for 2 hours. Man, I feel so blessed to have been granted or given or blessed with this position in the movement. I mean, how cool is that? It blows my mind. I am so grateful that just went down. I don't even know how to express it. I'm like fangirling over here. Let me go through quick and say thank you to everybody on Pilled. I promised you guys I would. Let me do this first. I'm going to release the scratching. So there you go. Anybody that gifted, please, anybody that's lurking, feel free. The scratching has just been released. All right, cool. Let me go through and say thank you to everybody that gifted pills over on pill.net. Ghost Rider with the can, thank you very much, buddy. Believer 987654, I see you in the Telegram. Thank you for the shades. Much love for you, Rambo. Believer again with the can. Believer again with the can. Believer again with the can. Oh, you love throwing pills at us, don't you? Another can. Believer. You had your own can fight over here. Thank you very, very much. Keep up the great work. I'm doing my best. Yale, PhD. Love you. Love your poetry. Where we go, one we go all with the cookie. Thank you very much. There you are, Believer again with another can. Red Gun 51 gifted a can. Scott 17 with the cookie. Believer again with the shades. Boy, you just can't stop over there. Thank you so much for supporting the show the way you do. With another can, I have to run. Thank you for an awesome show. I hope you watched this back and you heard me say your name 87 times as you just gifted 87 cans. Braised Piano with 2 cookies. F Plin, love that dude. Just won 3 gold pills, and there we go. There's all the people that are winning gold pills from the scratch. And if you guys aren't on pill.net, it's a really cool promotional thing. Pills are like a penny, right? So if you gift a cookie, it's $1. It's a really cool way to support shows. And at the end of the show, they do like a scratch off where you you get to receive something back and you put it in your little gold pill pouch and you go gift it to another show. And I highly suggest everybody checks out all the shows on this platform. Max Force was in here earlier. He's live right now. If you don't have anything to do and you're on Pilled, please go over and tell Mac I sent you. And that being said, on Wednesday at 1 p.m., we will be having Patrick Gunnels from Badlands Media come on with me. So that's going to be a really good time. I hope everybody comes and shows up. I am taking the day off tomorrow to go take the kids to the pool. We're going to go on a hike. We're going to do a whole bunch of family stuff as it's summertime. So I'm not going to be doing shows every day. I got to give the kids some time. So I hope everybody understands that. It's only 2 months, and then we'll be getting right back into shows all the time. As soon as Kim's back into work and the kids are back into school. Love you guys. We will see you on Wednesday. Much love. Let me find the outro here. There she is. Peace.